Boo-boos need band-aids, bro.
And if you can accept that you're going to fail, you can accept that you're going to win.
Are you like a mushroom? Are you the Mushroom King?
The Mushroom Man.
Are you actually Shrek?
Why do they gotta cry? Why do they gotta cry all the time? All it does, you've heard my philosophy. Crying just makes a problem last longer. Stop it.
I'm such a loser, sweating God, I'm the worst.
Welcome back to the Woodsmen podcast. We're your hosts, Brent Murphy.
And Joey Rucker.
And welcome back, chat. I almost said fam, but it's chat.
It's chat.
To season 2 of the Woodsmen podcast. Well, man, we've had a little break. Maybe a little bit more than a little. But, you know, it's time to get back, get kicking, get cooking, as the kids will call it, with some cool banger of episodes. We got some good topics. We got some guests. We got new studio spaces. We got everything. So, you know, what better way to come back to the first episode of the second season than with our first guest? So sit back, relax, stop listening to me yap for God knows how long, and let's get back to the show. Yerk!
Well, chat, we're back. And it feels good. It feels a little hard.
I was gonna say, does it feel good? Because I feel stressed.
It feels good to record again. It feels good to sit down with you, my homie, and my fellow woodsman, and finally get to talk again.
In your house.
Yeah, it's a little different. As if any of you watched our previous episode, which was a chill cast, so some people don't watch those as much, but
which you really should, because honestly, I feel like some of the chill casts have been better than the regular episodes.
Some of them are like bangers, dude, and no one.
They just see chill and they're like, no video, sorry.
Yeah. But no, so if you did miss it, we basically mentioned on the last episode of the Chillcast that unfortunately Brent had some boo-boos with his job at the church, and we had to leave our space. That's kind of wouldn't you say? Isn't that kind of a good way to put it?
Yeah, boo-boos are good. Boo-boos need band-aids, bro.
Sorry, that's funny. Boo-boos need band-aids, and I could use one right now.
I can use a band-aid, bro.
Yeah. So currently we are not in our previous space, and we probably will likely never be there again. So currently,
but we're making this one work for us.
We are working. Yeah, we're working with what we got, just like we did with the first half of season 1. And as you can see, now we're in season 2. It's a lot different.
We didn't think we'd be in season 2 this early.
No. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's time for us to start brainstorming. I think it's time for us to start looking forward to the next season, start making some new goals. We've accomplished so many goals in season 1. We've come so far. Yes. And I think we can get even farther in season 2.
Yeah,
sure.
100%. I think we're at a level now where we've gone through the hardest thing possible. Mm-hmm. I would say, at least from like us being situated. Yeah, we've gone through the hardest thing now. So if we can get through this, and we can get through it fast, and we can, you know, execute the plan perfectly, then we'll be in pretty good shape for season 3. I mean, agree. And that's part of our housekeeping today, honestly, is where we're at, and where we're going. So
how you been, man? How have you been since the Chillcast?
Well, like you told me, it's been a month.
Which we didn't realize.
Did not know it was a month. So that'll tell you how time is flying. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Just, I mean, besides all the existential crises I've been going through.
Is it existential?
I can't say it. I don't know.
Clearly, dude. I can't either.
I can't even say sea anemones. So
what? No, I can't say anemone. I can't say that
word.
Either.
Yeah,
no,
that one. Yeah.
But the one I can say that you can't is photosynthesis.
That's whack. Why do you have to bring that one up, bro? Because that one just makes me feel dumb.
Hey, I'll make you feel better. I have a little quick tidbit about myself that I've been holding off for this podcast, just to tell Brent and chat at the same time. This is a little like special. Whoa! What the? I can't hear out of my left ear, and I haven't been able to all night. I have Do you remember a little less than a year ago?
The weird fungus thing growing in your ear?
Uh-huh. It's back.
What do you mean?
It's back. And it's we're going to probably have to take me into an ENT again. Ruining the magic a little bit for chat here.
What?
We record this podcast in segments and not always in the order of how the episode plays out.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a very special interview soon, chat. And I want you to know I've already done that. I couldn't hear out of my left ear for that entire segment. So just wanted to bring that up. Little fun thing.
Dude,
nothing.
Is The Last of Us happening like to
Dog,
you?
I've been thinking about that the whole time.
Like, are you?
Why is a fungus growing in my head?
Are you like a mushroom? Are you the Mushroom King?
The Mushroom Man.
Are you actually Shrek? Bro's got mushrooms coming out of his ears, bro. You already just eat onions, bro. You already just eat onions, so. Oh my gosh, can we please play that video of you eating an onion like right now?
If I can find the video.
I will find the video and send it to you right after this.
If we get the video will officially play like right here.
Oh baby. Oh yes. I'm so ready for this. Scale of 1 to 10. How much of an ogre do you feel like right now?
Nice one! Mine!
Just the crunch.
So yeah, that was my breaking news for myself.
Well, you definitely shocked me because let me tell you, I was thinking way worse, but now that I'm thinking about it, that's actually way worse than what I was thinking.
Yeah,
that is terrifying.
It's a bit of a struggle because the way this happened the first time.
Because I can't hear.
Well, yeah, there's that. But the way this happened the first time was very similar, where eventually I couldn't hear out of it.
And then immense pain.
Immense pain followed soon after. And have you ever been like sick, but you're not sick yet? It's like that morning.
You just know it's coming.
It's that night before, and you're like, "Oh, my throat's gonna hurt."
Like you're like, should I go to the doctor now?
We've already ordered.
Or should I wait? Like
the prescription they gave me last time, like because
I wouldn't wait that long.
Yeah, no,
not with that pain.
Yeah,
that pain.
That pain was
brutal.
one of the worst pains I've ever had.
Well, because I've had ear infections, but to have some mushrooms going out your ears, bro, like that's
Don't say it like that.
Well, fungus is mushrooms, bro. So,
well, yeah,
dude, you're literally, bro. You know how much money you can make
out of what?
Off of selling shrooms.
Oh my god!
Like out of your ears, bro. That's
I'm
crazy.
not selling the mushrooms out of my ears.
Have
dog.
you tried one?
Why would I even do that? What are you even saying?
What if it was a good experience? I don't know.
Oh my god!
Speaking of experiences, last month I went through an experience.
Which one? What are you referring to?
The one, the life changing one that happened in my garage.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, anyway.
You can't. I feel like we can't end it at that. It just sounds like we did some crazy things.
We just need to listen. Listen, because I can't. Do you know?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's literally at that point where
we need to get this going because I
know
can't do
that
anymore.
Tomorrow morning it's gonna be hurting, and I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm so sorry. Well, let's get on with housekeeping then. Let's finish up because we actually do for once have good housekeeping to talk about.
Why don't you bring some of us into it?
Well, part of what we claimed we were going to work on this, I guess, month we've been off now, was we were definitely going to be working on a new platform of sorts called Cabin 13 Productions.
Yes.
Very excited. As you know, we're filmmakers, documentarians of the sort. Certified yappers on the internet.
Yeah, definitely.
And we got a lot of vices that isn't just podcasting. So, like Joey's talked about, I do music. He wants to do short films. Joey is also currently working on a script for an audio docudrama. I almost said docu-series, but
it's like an audio drama.
yeah,
thing.
like an audio drama.
Yeah.
That's the word. Yeah, an audio drama, which I'm personally excited about because I get to work on it with him, so I'm pretty excited. But yeah, we have that. I'm currently working on a documentary, an actual documentary,
which I'm looking forward to seeing. I think it's a really cool concept.
I just need to find that willpower, dude. To
Dude,
find that
it's
willpower.
the same way with me.
We need to go and get diagnosed for this ADHD soon, bro.
No, dude. Like I keep coming up with all these ideas that I want to put into the story
and
for
then
my audio
an
drama.
hour after, I'm like,
I
no
won't
motivation.
Write a single thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
we'll get there.
We might post. We might not. As you can hear, we're not that motivated.
Yeah.
So
we struggle enough as it is to get this podcast out.
We're probably not even going to get it out on Friday.
We're probably not. But listen, we're coming back into the swing of things. I can guarantee that it'll be out by Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That was so convincing.
Listen, chat, we were really ahead of the game, and we're not ahead of the game now, so
we're so ahead that we're falling behind.
Amen, brother. Amen.
But yeah, please, everyone, as we are struggling to figure out all of this stuff, please look forward to all of these new announcements. We really do want to take this seriously, and it would help so much if you guys follow, subscribe, rate us.
Oh my gosh,
please.
Please, I don't know how many times I've asked chat to just rate us 5 stars on Spotify. You don't even have to mean it. You don't even have to mean it. We could be a 2-star podcast. Just give us 5 stars.
Exactly. It takes a minute out of your day. It truly helps us grow. Just hop on Spotify and give us a quick 5-star, please.
Yeah. I will say, Call of the Wild. That episode is still one of the best. I don't know why that episode is doing so good right now.
Which is so funny because it's our first Woodsman episode.
Maybe people want to actually hear us talk about the woods or something. Yeah. I don't know, man.
Well, listen, I really do hope you guys enjoy it. But moving on to the most important part of today's episode.
The topic,
of course. And basically, if this does get out by Saturday, then hopefully our episode will be coming out right before Father's Day.
Amen. And as we know, as we've all talked about before, I don't have a dad. That's about it. That's all I had to say. But
I
want to know who does?
I have one. And introducing for the first time ever on the Woodsmen podcast, someone other than us.
Cue the interview.
Our first special guest. Cue it up. And welcome to a very special segment. This is a big moment for the Woodsman podcast, and I'm very glad to be sharing it with this person today. This is our first ever guest on the podcast, and hopefully not our last. With today's theme, it felt only right to interview my one and only father, Randy Rucker. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
All I can hear is right now is, I'm number one. I'm number one.
Yeah, you are number one. You're the number one dad. You're, my only dad. So that's something. But yeah, welcome to the podcast. You are officially our first ever special guest. We've never had anybody. We've talked about it, but this is our first ever time actually having someone on the air.
It feels good not to be number 2.
That's true. So today, this episode is coming out right before Father's Day, and so we thought it was only fair to do a themed episode all about fatherhood and dads and raising kids and stuff like that. And so I just prepared a couple questions, quite a few actually, so I could kind of interview you and talk about your walk as a father and see kind of how you feel about it and what your life has been like as being a father.
Fair enough.
Sorry, I've never interviewed anyone, so this is my first time, and you'd think it'd be less awkward since you're my dad, but
I'm trying to do that stare to make it more awkward.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I'll just jump right into it. One of the first questions I had was there anything you wanted to do before you actually became a father that you never did?
Not really. See, you get in a mode where you just live your life. Fatherhood's one of those things where when it happens, that's when your life changes. You don't really plan to change your life. Like, no matter what, at that point in time, you try to live. For instance, your mom and I kind of did it right. For instance, we got together, fell in love, had our time together as a couple, got married, had a couple years as marriage. So then when it was time to have a family, we were kind of there, right? But when it happened, it's never real. It's like one of those things you can tell people and everybody can sympathize with you, but they can't empathize because they'll be like, oh yeah, I can see what that would be like. There isn't that. There is no way to describe what it is until it is. So, some people get pregnant on purpose, some people, on accident, but either way, it's just when that moment starts, from the moment it becomes real. You can describe the change, but any parent would tell you that the reality of when it is, for what you see what you think it's gonna be, it's indescribable.
Sure. Well, it's funny because that's actually my second question was, what did it feel like when you actually became a dad? Specifically, when you first saw me. I'm the oldest child, so was there? You're saying it's indescribable. Is there any describable sensation you can kind of put into words when you first saw me that day?
Well, it depends on when you say when it starts. Okay, for instance, here's what sucks, and I'm going to give this from a dad point of view.
Sure.
For the moment you find out, you're excited, right? But most men are instinctually protectors, right?
Yeah.
And the mother is the one who's pregnant. The mother is the one who carries the child. So all you can do with the dad is stress and hope everything comes out all right, right? So the whole pregnant time, you're trying to help, you're trying to be supportive, you're trying to do everything you can, but at the end of the day, you feel so helpless. All you can do is stress about stuff you can't control. So from minute one, you find out, right? You're just that whole pregnancy time, you just feel so helpless. And then you go into the actual pregnancy time, like you're talking about that first time you see, and like the whole time you're sitting there, especially with your first child. Okay, and I'm telling you right now, until you've seen it, some things can't be unseen.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, and no matter what it is, you're just like,
it doesn't go away.
Yeah, can't get that image out of your head. But it's that reality of it's a real biological function. Okay, and that's all it is until it's a real life. It's that same thing. You can talk about it, you can describe it, but all of a sudden, when it comes out and it is now not it's a human being.
Yeah.
Right. There's that moment of reality change. Like, this is real. Right. And like I said, like you can't describe what it feels like. You can only live it.
It's okay. We'll cut that bit out. Just get it out. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're back. Go on. Where were you at?
I remember what it was. Okay, so we're back into that. So, like I said, and I don't know how to say that better. It goes from it's coming out to it is no longer an it. It's real. It's a human being. It's a life. It's your life. It's part of you. It's the one thing that you all of a sudden you kick in, and your first thing that kicks in for any real parent is, I made this, I own this, I have to protect this, I have to raise this, I'm responsible for this. Everything about this is now on me. Like, that's that, and that's
is that the biggest change? Is like, what is the biggest change once you are like officially a father or a parent? Like, is it the responsibility aspect of it all?
Yeah, I would say that the responsibility, like and it's ownership is like such a bad word. It's like it sounds like it's a possession, but it's more than a possession. It's like an accountability. It's but everything that you say it's not supposed to come out as a negative. It's an accountability, but man, that's like the biggest blessing you got. It's something I truly want to be accountable for. It's a responsibility, but it's not like a bad responsibility. It's like a blessing responsibility. Everything is like, you can't describe any word you would describe has to be followed with, I am blessed with this. I'm blessed with this responsibility. I'm blessed with this accountability. I'm blessed with this, and you're sitting there and you're running through your head. It's like instead of flashing back to what was, I think the first instinct is once you see it's a real human life and it's part of you and it's your human life, you're running through your future. This is what I'm going to do. This is where we're going to go. This is where to do. And that's why I say some real parents when I talk to other people about this kind of thing, like I've talked to other, we grow up and talk about kids and everything. And it, like I said, that blessing feeling I'm talking about.
Sure.
Nobody ever understands how somebody could possibly walk away from that. When you see people that walk away, like parents that just walk away from that, is I don't understand how anybody has ever looked that human life and said, I don't want this. Right?
Yeah.
Even I've known people that were like, actually through the whole pregnancy, didn't want the pregnancy. They were worried, they didn't do it. But then when it's real, it's like, it's all
It's a mind switch. They just snap to reality.
It turned on. So when somebody walks away from that, it's, I would say 90% of parents are just like, I don't understand how you could possibly do that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's that ownership. I don't own it like I could sell it. I own it because I'm responsible for it.
Sure.
Right. So.
Well, that brings me to to a couple of our other questions. Funny enough, to kind of as a segue question into some of the more serious topics, if you don't mind, to kind of segue into it. Do you think there's a difference between being a dad and being a father? And they're both in terminology's sake the same thing, but do you kind of see where I'm kind of going with that question? Like, is there a difference between actually having a relationship with your kids and taking that blessing of responsibility, or just doing it because it's the quota of the day, in a way?
Yes, is, and depending on how you want to define it, I'll go through like whichever word you want to put on which. There is a difference because when you see your child, you always want to be their best friend, right? But there's a responsibility factor where you can't always just be a friend, right?
Yeah.
You learn along the way. And the problem is there's no guidebook to be a parent. Right?
Yeah,
You have to figure out, you can read all the books they read, but until you've lived it, it's kind of like a pool, right? You can tell me all about swimming, but until I jump in the pool, I'm not going to know whether or not swimming works. So you got to kind of try it and flop around and figure out what works and what doesn't. You're doing that parents. You're flopping around as a parent trying to figure it out. And one thing you figure out really quick is I don't want to be ever hurt this person, but then you realize at some point in time you also have to be the authority figure. Right?
Yeah.
Seeing when a kid looks at you with their loving eyes, yet they're doing something that's going to be detrimental to their health, right? I can't just let you walk into the street, into the traffic, and if I've got to do something, accountability wise to get you to do it, those loving eyes are great, but the greater good kicks in, and that's where it is. You want to be that, hey, I'm your dad, I'm your best friend, everything's great, but there's always in that, but at some point in time, it's kind of that old thing. Sometimes I get paid to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it hurts. Okay. No parent likes disciplining their kid, no matter what a kid thinks. It's like the worst thing.
Yeah.
But there's really, as you go through that journey and you're doing it, disciplining a kid is like the biggest sign of love that you can.
I totally see what you're saying. But Brent and I, my fellow podcasteer, we've actually talked quite a bit on our episodes in the past about parenting and, like, at least our views from it being the kids and not having the experience that you have as an actual parent. And we've actually talked about how, like, growing up, when you're young, spankings and things like that seem cruel. And to a lot of people these days with cancel culture and all these crazy different topics, it can seem like it's abuse. But to us, me and Brent have mentioned it before, how it's all about the intent and it's all about what you're trying to do as a parent. If you're hitting your kids just to hit your kids, that's like insanity, of course. But, like, like you said, discipline comes with loving intent of trying to better that person and trying to give them the best outcome in life. And I think now that I'm older, now that I'm 23, looking back at things like spankings, I don't regret, or I guess regret's not the wrong word, but I don't hold any of that on my soul, I guess, in a way. Like that never stays on my conscience. Like I've always been okay with that type of parenting, and I've actually said, I think Brent and I have said on air that we kind of believe in things like spanking or harsh discipline as long as it's for that, like you said, loving discipline, you know?
Yeah, because it goes into that, like, we talk about the spanking and the stuff like that, because that always comes up in, you know, especially in today's world. Oh, you don't spank your kid, that's just wrong, and it doesn't change anything. But on the other hand, nobody then put whatever level of discipline you are, okay? It's just a measure of what you have determined. What is the level of discipline needed? Not everybody needs a spanking. Not everything accounts for it. And any parent that has ever spanked a kid for the right reason has felt completely guilty afterwards.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I never, ever, ever once spanked you.
Well, I would assume you didn't, like, spank me and then be like, hell yeah, that was...
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's the difference between abuse and whatever. Like, if you can hit somebody and be like, hey, they come in, it's what they deserved, right? That's just violence. You do it and you totally feel guilty and you're knowing, but it's that one thing is what's worse, to try to do something. And I've never ever spanked any of my kids where it wasn't, I tried to do everything I possibly could to change the behavior beforehand, right?
That's true.
That's like
that's very true.
Last resort.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you do groundings, you do accountability. Well, you start with the intense talk with, hoping they just listen when you tell them. Then you do the thing. There's always levels of you tried, and everybody tends to forget every level because you had to finally get to that one level, which finally changed the behavior. But at the point in time, as hard as that was, if you don't change the behavior, something worse was going to happen, right? If somebody was doing drugs and you just said, hey, it's all good, no problem, and then all of a sudden that person overdoses and dies, where are you going to be for the rest of your life saying, I wish I would have done this, right? Yeah. It's just the reality of you never wish the worst thing on it, but you're also trying to do everything you can to change your behavior that could make it the worst case scenario, right? So your conscience is clear in that, but it never feels good.
Yeah. Going into some of the, like we mentioned just a little bit prior, these were a couple questions given by Brent, actually. He asked, how do you see some of the mistakes that your father made show up in your parenting? And yeah, I'll get to more after that. Like, where would you start with that? Because for those who don't know, your father did leave, or did sort of, I mean, maybe you can tell a little bit better than I can. I don't know every detail, and you don't have to go into more detail than you're comfortable with. But
no, it's fine, because the biggest lesson that I always jump to is when people ask me that. Like, for me, it's real easy, right? Leaving almost would be easier for me, but it's not that he left. He was close enough to be there and chose not to be. It wasn't like he left and moved to another country, you know, did all this great stuff. He was never that far away. He
was still available.
Yeah. So it became apparent to me, you can make bad choices, you can make rough decisions. Like I said, there's no book on how to get it right? But I'll tell you right now, any kid would rather have their parent there making mistakes than not there. Okay? And, you know, how are you going to say I did it right or did it wrong if they're not there? So the answer is like where it was. And what did I ever make my present? You know, that was always my thing. And if I learned, because it was the one thing personal to me from the hurt that I know what it feels, I could never wish that on somebody. So my goal was, look, whether I get it right or whether I don't, which I understand I make mistakes, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Right. I've never, ever had any of my kids ever at a point where I don't think I've ever put you in a position where you didn't think I'd be there. Right. And that is something you can't, you'll never know the value of that unless you've had the other side of that. Right. Your mom and I both suffered from that. Right. We can sit here and say, you know, you're missing a parent. Right. There is something advantage to a family that, and I'm not being disrespectful, because of all the single moms in the world, especially my own, that have like gone above and beyond, going to take care of us, and that love you feel. And you know, as a two parent household, what that single parent went through for you.
Yeah.
Right. It's great. But I mean, I don't want to say it's great. You understand what your single parent did for you. Right.
Yeah.
Because the job was not meant to be done by one person.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as a father goes, I'll tell you right now, I try to get it right every time. But even if I get it wrong, my only goal was to make sure you knew I was here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
No, I get that, and I think from my perspective, as like a third party, and I've never completely dealt with that because, like you said, you and Mom were always here. I think that responsibility of, like, once you have a kid, you now sort of you're sort of entitled to stay. Like, that's sort of the job. And I think some people just don't. I think people struggle with that once it fully they come to grip with it, is that, oh, this is like a forever thing. Sort of like this. And there's similar problems with marriage, and there's similar problems with, relationships and things like that, but there's like different key points in life where once you have to realize this is supposed to be for good, then that can scare people,
Yeah, and that's where it is, and that's why you tend to get non-sympathetic, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Most people understand where babies come from and how they're created.
That's fair.
So when you're doing the deed that creates babies and you're taking for granted that there's not the possibility of a result, right? Then who gave you that right? Right.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it is what it is. So when the responsibility comes from the actions you created, then yeah, you need to take the responsibility because it's the life that needs you there that you created.
Sure.
And that goes back to where I said that accountability or that ownership thing, right? You did the deed, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The result is supposed to be a blessing, okay? And even if it was an accident, it was still supposed to be a blessing.
Yeah.
Okay? And therefore, you have the accountability, which means you should be there.
Sure,
Now,
sure.
Are you going to screw up? Oh, dear Lord, I've made some mistakes. I've had a lot of, I wish I could take backs. But on the other hand, that's what life is.
Yeah.
Right? You screw up, you learn from it, you move on. If, most people screw up and they don't learn from it, like, how do you tell stupid people they're stupid? Right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't understand what you're saying because they're stupid. So hopefully you live in a life where you say, okay, I'm stupid enough to know I'm stupid, so therefore maybe I can try to do something to get smarter.
Well, staying a little bit on the kind of serious talk before because I want to sort of end with some of the more happy tones and fun questions. So just kind of staying on this serious bit for just a little while longer. Another question I had that I was very curious to see your take on was, what is it like as a father specifically to lose a child, and how do you even begin to grapple with that? In our family, for those who don't know, for the podcast, we lost a child in our family. My sister, your daughter, her name was Rachel. And I guess the things that I was wondering is, like, how does that affect you differently than like other family members specifically, and like especially Mom, because Mom is the mother, obviously. And so I'm wondering, like, how as a dad does something so traumatic and hopefully not enough, no one needs to go through, but how does that affect something like a father differently than others, and how do you kind of wrestle with that?
Yeah. So you learn, like, here's the reality. No matter what happens, things are designed to be in a way. Let's say whatever you believe, whatever you put, everything was designed to work in a certain function, right? You're supposed to be born. You're supposed to live life. You're supposed to procreate. You're supposed to, die. So it's supposed to happen in order. Okay, I don't care what everybody says. When somebody says the statement of, like, everybody should, nobody, no parent should outlive their child, right? You hear that statement. That's by design. Okay, there's a reason for that. Everybody dies. And at some point in time, it's sad when you lose a grandparent. It's sad when you lose a parent. But that's the way it's supposed to happen, right? And there's a reason for that. The person, if a parent dies before their children, right, that parent got to have their life, right?
Yeah.
the child is supposed to follow that and have their life.
Mm-hmm.
So when a parent loses a child, you see the life that was lost. And it's not just like you say the term life. I'm talking about is a like a verb, right? They were supposed to have that life experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you started the journey. They were supposed to be allowed to have the journey. So now the parent only gets to feel the pain of the journey that's lost. Right. And that's where you screw up the design, like when you do that. Right. And it's supposed to be that way. You want to educate your kids. You want to raise your kids. You want to influence your kids. But then at some point in time, you got to let go of the kids so they can go out, make their own mistakes, make their own things. Then they can teach and they can take what they take. I've always told my kids, like I've told you and everybody else, I'll make mistakes. That's easy. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to be a better person and a better parent than I was. Take everything you saw I did good and duplicate it. Take everything you saw that you thought I screwed up and don't do that. Right?
Yeah.
So you should end up as a better person than me. That's what a parent wants.
That's the goal.
Yeah. And then you say, how did this, that's how it's supposed to be. So that's probably the biggest hurt is I lost out on the ability to see what was supposed to be. And I'll never get that opportunity to see what was supposed to be. I was supposed to be allowed to watch the life. I was supposed to watch what happened. It's like when you watch a movie. You wait for the movie. Then the movie's here. Then you watch the movie, and you're just kind of waiting for the exciting parts, the parts of the sad parts, right? You want to laugh a little. You want to cry a little. You can't wait to see the end, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was taken from you. It was like somebody all of a sudden decided to cancel the damn movie while you were standing in line with your ticket, right?
Do you find yourself holding any kind of, like, resentment in any way to the fact that it was, like, quote-unquote stolen from you?
Yeah. If I changed anything about my philosophy on life, and it really did, in that whole situation, but it started with, because it wasn't like a sudden death. It wasn't like we just plane crash or whatever. We fought to do it and it happened. So during that whole time, it comes back to everything. You want to feel absolutely useless and helpless, be in a hospital, and not be able to do anything, watching the whole thing transpire, right? And then the end comes. And somebody finally has to tell you, right, your child has passed away. And if anything changed my life philosophy, and you guys have heard me say it over and over again, is the statement of control what you can control and have faith in the rest. Mm-hmm. Because that statement right there is the only way. If you don't believe that statement, you cannot live your life beyond any tragedy. Right, you cannot control everything, and that's the biggest crap shot of. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that.
Crap is fine. Crap is totally fine.
Yeah, the biggest slap in the face that you can get is when you realize you can't control things. You want to be a father and you want to do everything, and then the day comes and you realize you can't control everything. Mm-hmm. Most men are designed to try to fix everything.
Yeah, it's like in their biology.
Yeah, we have an instinct to fix everything. So when you realize I can't fix this, I can't do this, is out of my control, well then all you have left is that faith. So, where are you going to go, right? And that's where it actually strengthened my faith, but it strengthened my faith by forcing me to deal with pain that I should have never had to deal with.
Yeah, something you've never had to go
crummiest
through.
lesson I ever got in my life, but it's also made me stronger in everything else, right? Mm-hmm. It teaches you to appreciate what you do have. Nobody should have to learn how to appreciate what you do have via that lesson.
I know it's not quite the same thing, but do you kind of see that sort of like a weird parallel to what you were saying earlier about love and punishment, where it's not like, I'm not saying, God took Rachel from us, but like through the hurt and through this feeling that you've never had to struggle with before, you learned more from it going forward, and like you think it bettered you afterwards. Like, it's kind of a hard question to ask, because like it's not an easy question to ask, but do you think that sort of, because a lot of people say that when traumatic things happen, especially those who are faithful, that afterwards you learned a lesson from it and it bettered you. Do you think that there's some kind of parallel to that in that whole situation?
It did. I believe the result of what came out bettered me, right? But that's kind of goes with everything, right? Every experience, good, bad, or indifferent, I've tried to say, what did I learn from this, right? And so yes, the answer is I took it like everything I take to better myself out of it.
Yeah.
But again, it was probably the absolute worst way.
Sure.
I could be taught a lesson to better myself as a parent, as a person, and everything else. So do I think it had positive results? Yes. But I would never, ever
wish
want to go through that way to learn a result ever again in my life.
That's obviously not what I'm saying.
No. That's not. I'm just trying to say that's. I'm trying to answer in a way. I got benefits from it.
Yeah.
But that almost hurts to say out loud. I didn't want to benefit that way, right? We talked about the whole thing of like the accountability for a kid, right? It's like the most painful way. You don't want to do it. But on the other hand, when you see your kid change and start making better choices, doing the right thing, you also get the joy of that. So there is a long win, right? Everything comes with an advantage. There's just certain ways you don't want the advantage. But on the other hand, it did put my faith stronger. It did make me also learn to say, I can't control everything, so therefore I need to focus harder on what I can control.
Yeah.
So I did learn life lessons out of it. Just don't ever want to learn a life lesson again.
That's fair. I understand that feeling. I appreciate you being very open about that whole situation. Obviously, I asked prior to the podcast if you'd be willing, and I think it's helpful for any parents or fathers specifically who have dealt with this kind of thing to kind of hear some of those factors that you went through. But kind of trying to shift away from all of the sort of somewhat monotone, sad, or serious talk. I want to kind of bring things back, and I want to ask some fun or more uplifting questions. And so I'm just going to run through a couple quick ones. Is there a difference? And if there is, what is the biggest difference between being a father of a son and a father of a daughter?
Emotions. Good God. Why do they gotta cry? Why do they gotta cry all the time? All it does, you've heard my philosophy. Crying just makes a problem last longer. Stop it.
Yeah.
I think you will notice every one of my kids, including yourself, when you got hurt, what do? You walk in the room crying. You see me sitting there, and what do? You stop crying and you ask where your mother is. I tell you where she is, you start crying again and you walk that direction. Because you know darn well whatever you did is coming with a life lesson. Okay?
Yeah.
And no matter how I love my daughter with all my heart. I love my son with all my heart. But I don't want to talk about how you feel.
That's such a funny thing to say. It's so funny to just straight up be like, I don't want to talk about your emotions.
Can we shorten the story to the good or the bad part?
Yeah, let's get to the end.
Tell me what happened, not how it felt when it happened.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's fair. And
I think most men are designed that way. I'm not saying it's bad, and I know that's the case. I mean, I know that I'm trying to be sexist or whatever, but most women, and it goes back to what I said about the design thing, right? Men are supposed to be fix-it. But again, there's got to be balance, right? Because a lack of emotions, that makes evil people. So you go by design. When the mother knows how to show emotion and the father knows how to show the life lesson, then you get a life lesson with emotions, and then the person comes out much more well balanced. I think it's supposed to be that way. But if you ask me the difference, I'm on man's side.
It's okay. That's fair. That's fair. Everybody's got to pick a side, or I don't think you can pick both. Am I your favorite kid?
I'm sorry, I'm going back to the you can't pick both. I'm like, you're not going to address today's society.
Oh, yeah, that's
pretty sure that was pretty insensitive.
It's everybody can pick whatever they want, but anyway. So, like I said, am I your favorite kid?
Are you my favorite kid? Let's see. Here's the answer to that question. Yes and no.
You've never answered the question like that before.
I got it. You asked the question, I'm answering the question. You told me to be honest.
Yes and no.
Sure. Every one of you are my favorite. There's every one of time that
all of you are not. Okay, that's fair.
You can't you can't love your kids different. People are different. Like, every one of you has your own personality, right? You are who you are. You're different from your sister. You're both different from your younger brother.
Yeah.
Right? You learn that through life. And once you can accept that fact, I tried to raise you all the same, and yet you all still came out different. I'm like, how can my never changing values on you, and you all end up with 3 different personalities? That's when you realize, you are who you are. So, but for a parent's love, right? You can't be one above another, right? It just can't be done, right?
No,
Because that's what I mean.
fair.
It's that ownership thing, right? It's you love, but you just love, and you can't even describe it, right? So there isn't the ability to have a favorite.
Yeah.
But there's not the ability not have a favorite because, as goofy as that sounds, and that's a cop-out answer. No, that's a reality.
That's not a cop-out answer. It's totally true. Like me and Becca, my sister, I've talked about her before on the podcast. We've talked a lot about how, especially now that we're older, how much more we realize like how conscious people are and how like everybody really is like somebody else. You know, like Becca is her own person. I am me. And that's kind of a crazy thing to think about in the long run. It sounds stupid to just say out loud because, like, obviously everyone's different. But it's a weird feeling as you start getting older, especially, like, when you've been young. So, like, because I'm still very young in the grand scheme of things. I'm just now starting to get to, like, adulthood and starting to experience, like, you know, my own conscious self, I guess. I think what the male brain is said to fully develop by 25. So I'm not even there yet. But it's crazy sometimes for me to be like, oh, that person has a life. That person goes out and has his own family, his own friends, his own job, wife, kid, whatever. And it's the same thing with me and Becca. So I totally see what you're saying. Like, we're totally different, all 3 of us, me, Becca, and John. And so, no, it's not a cop-out answer.
There's a reality is if a building was on fire, a person will run in and there's, a bunch of kids in there. And no matter what, your intent will be to save all those kids because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But you will grab your kid first.
That's fair, yeah.
And it's like, well, that seems a little cop-out because little Toby in the corner was like, well, what about me? And sorry, Toby, I'll be back for you. I got to get mine out of here.
Got to get mine first.
Try not to, like, inhale too much smoke, Toby. Take care of yourself. I'll be back in a second.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I have one final question for you, and this question came from Brent as well, and I think it's a good way to end it, and I'm curious to see your answer. Brent asked, what steps can we as young men take to provide love and protect our families in the future? Like, what would be your advice on that?
I go back to what you said about the most important thing. Be there. You ain't going to get it right every time. And if you can accept that you're going to fail, you can accept that you're going to win. But you're not going to do either if you're not there.
Yeah, you can't win if you're not at the race.
Yeah, ain't nobody stepped up to home plate and hit a home run if they were sitting in the 3rd row and forgot to walk on the field.
That's, yeah.
You got to get in the game, right? And that's really what it comes down to. If you want to do the right thing, you're never going to improve yourself if you're not in the game, right? And that's just... It sounds as simple as that, but it's what most people miss. Too many people are watching the world go by on the sidelines and forgetting, like, hey, I should make a difference. I could be the difference. And if you want to be a difference in a child's life, be there. Okay? Then you're like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, of course you don't.
No one does.
Yeah, but you ain't gonna figure it out if you ain't playing the game.
That's a really good response. I really like that. I think a lot of people should take that to heart because that it is one of the biggest factors in life is you're not going to be able to, like, and even for less crazy things, like like you said, sports, jobs, tasks, little hobbies, you're never going to get better at them if you're not doing them. You're not, and especially with fatherhood and parenting, you're not going to be the perfect father, obviously, but you're not going to you're not going to not get better at it if you're not there, I don't know if I double negative that, but you know what I mean.
No, it's the reality. It just kind of comes with everything, right? Is so many people live at the end of their lives with regrets, saying like, thinking back, I had all the time to do this, and I never got up and did it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not different for being a parent, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can't be looking at the end of the life saying, "I wish I would have done something better in their life." Like, better to get up and screw it up
Mm-hmm.
than to stay on the couch and watch it happen.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate all the honesty, all of the responses and advice. I hope a lot of people can take away something from this. And I really, again, want to thank you so much for being the first guest on the Woodsman podcast.
I'm number one.
Well,
I'm number one.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah,
No,
appreciate it.
Tell you what I tell your mom every day. She just needs to count her blessings. How lucky she is to have me.
It's very true. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Hello, fellow woodsmen and chat. Welcome back to Joey's News Corner. Official name still pending. Today, I have some special little bits for you. First on our list, the New York thing that happened with the portal in New York City. There is a new thing called the New York Portal, the New York Dublin Portal. They have one in New York and they have one in Dublin, Ireland. And it was officially closed on May 14th due to a lot of inappropriate activity. Some people were doing drugs in front of it. There was one instance which was the final straw where a woman flashed her chest in front of the camera, and all the people in Ireland had quite a surprise. And so it was closed for a couple weeks. I believe it has just reopened, but hopefully that people cannot be such Neanderthals as it stays open, because it's quite a cool thing. People in Dublin and Ireland Ireland and New York can like literally see and talk to each other like live. It's a cool concept. Second on our list today of Joey's News Corner is the Northern Lights. If you missed it, a couple weeks ago, it was like the first time ever where California actually was able to visibly see the Northern Lights. Maybe the first, if it had it. But yeah, so it was the first, if not a long time, where California was officially able to see the Northern Lights. So it's kind of cool. Little tidbit for you. But the main sauce on today's news segment was Trump was found guilty on 34 felony counts for falsifying business records I'm sorry. I'm just going to read it verbatim. You can find the link to the article I found this information from down in our description, as always, but just reading off of it, interesting tidbit about Trump's trial lately. A New York jury convicting Donald Trump on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records brought the former president's weeks-long trial to a close, but ushered in a new phase of the historic case. Now, in this unique position of being the first former U.S. president convicted of a felony, Trump faces the possibility of a prison sentence or probation for his crimes stemming from a hush money payment scheme he helped facilitate ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Pretty crazy. Trump has actually come out saying that he will appeal the conviction once he is able to do so, as the trial keeps clicking on. So we'll see what happens with the orange guy. So yeah, thank you for joining me in Joey's News Corner, and I hope to see you next week.
Well, bro, I gotta tell you, that interview is pretty deep.
I had a lot of fun recording it. I didn't know what to expect.
I mean, I didn't either. I mean, it was already a little strange because I was just sitting there listening to you guys.
Yeah, that's the first time we've had anyone on the podcast. So and at the moment we can't do 3 people at once just because of our own limitations. But
yeah,
it was kind of weird doing Woodsman without you
with your father.
It was very strange, like a weird feeling. I have to admit.
I do have to say, your dad does very good on camera. I was like, man, he's always
been like kind of he was like the popular kid back.
He's a charismatic guy.
I don't know. Would I call him an extrovert? I don't know. Yeah. My dad's pretty extroverted.
He's pretty extroverted for sure.
He's like a not wanting to be an extrovert, but is one kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Definitely not you.
No, I hate extroversion.
No, your brother takes that very well from your dad.
Mm-hmm. No,
very has no fear of talking to people. Just hey, what's up?
He just goes about it. Like, he freaks me out. Like, he's the kind of kid who, when you go through a drive-through, he'll be like, "Hello, how is your day?" And I'm just like, Jonathan, shut up.
I'm just trying to get my double. Don't ask them any more questions. Are you crazy?
They're here to serve.
They're
me.
not humans.
No, I don't think that. Just saying, I don't. Fast
food workers should be getting paid $5 an hour.
No,
that's Joey's opinion.
No, I cannot imagine having.
Bro, stop.
No,
stop
no,
it
no.
right now.
I can't imagine the truth. I cannot imagine having to work fast food.
I wouldn't.
Legitimately.
I wouldn't.
My heart goes out to all fast food workers. Like, I would never want your life. No offense.
No, because you don't get paid to deal with these people. You don't get paid to deal with them. And here's the thing: me as a customer, I don't know. I don't want to look at it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get mad for you. As I see these TikToks, I'm like, thank God there's other social justice warriors out there, because if it was me, man, I'd be going to jail, because there ain't no way someone's going to talk to someone like that in front of me.
Yeah.
Like, it ain't worth.
Someone's getting punched in the face.
Someone's getting decked, bro. Someone's getting punched in the throat. So, well, we got some questions though. We got some really.
Let's run through some.
Because I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
It's been a little while.
So I got to participate. Well, we got some good ones. I got to start off with feel like if anyone talks about like being a father, the first question's always got to be, what scares you the most, bro? What is that one thing where you're like, man, my girl, if you had one, but like if my girl came up to me and was like, "Hey, I'm late."
That is what you got over me, isn't it? I always make fun of your lack of fatherhood.
That's right.
You can always throw.
At least I'm not single.
It's a tough question, man. It really is. There's so much to fear. I mean, especially talking with my dad. Like, all I could think about was like, you having to be like, all right, this is it. This is everything.
Like, you got 9 months to grow up.
Mm-hmm. Like, you have to get yourself together. That's one of my biggest fears about being a parent for my entire life, is like the worry of whether or not I'm going to be able to support them.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, in my mind, I've never been like, if I have a kid, I'm just going to bail. It's never been that.
Yeah.
My worry is like, I'm not going to bail.
It's like,
what am I going to do?
I'm worried about me, because I can barely feed myself daily, let alone feeding another human daily. Like,
I forget to feed my dogs all the time. What am I going to do with a little crawling human?
And they can walk up to me and like bark at me. Like, what's my baby going to do? Just sit there and just bah. like bah. Yeah, like I don't know, dude. That can mean like 8,000 things in baby language. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
You don't have the words. You don't.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, I'm pooped. Like, like what do you do? Like, I don't.
No, so that's always been my biggest fear personally, is like I really hope that I'll be able to support the family that I grow.
Yeah.
Like, what about you? What's one of your biggest like fears with that?
Legitimate fears. Getting that text, call, or talk saying that like I'm late, and like that just right. I mean, I know I said it as a joke, but you know how terrifying that would be, bro. Like, you're just living a normal ass day. Like, you're not thinking about nothing. You're just probably at work. You're probably sitting there on TikTok scrolling. Just probably see another couple. Probably see a couple cat memes. Just like ha ha ha. You're just living a normal day.
Yeah,
you're just living a normal day, and then your girl like, I have to talk to you. Like,
oh no.
And you're like, first of all, you're like, what'd I do wrong? Mm-hmm. And then when you find out you did nothing wrong, what do you mean? Like, why are we talking? And then them to say they're late
to Disneyland, or
or
I have created a
yeah,
human.
like that is terrifying. Like whether or not you want a kid right now or not,
yeah.
that's terrifying.
Mhm.
Like to not be prepared for it, because like your dad said, people try for kids.
Mhm.
You know, some people can't have kids first try, so they
Yeah.
they gotta try consistently. But imagine not. No, like that's scary. Like
It's
that is scary.
absolutely terrifying. But you know what's weird? I also have a slight fear of that unexplainable feeling. That
Which one?
the one that like my dad
Like
was
when
saying,
you
and a
see
lot
the
of parents
kid.
say, where it was like, yeah, once you see that kid, once you finally see your son or daughter for the first time, and then everything changes. I'm actually slightly afraid of that emotion because I feel like if it's true what most parents say that none of us have ever felt it because we can't feel it until we have that.
Yeah.
I'm it's weird. I'm kind of nervous about it. Like strange enough, it's just an emotion, but most of the time it's a blessing.
Yeah.
But it kind of scares me. It kind of scares me to have that feeling.
I think the scariest thing, I mean, we could go back and forth on like fears of being a father because I mean, I got a lot of them. I mean, I'm 24. I'm a year older than you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm closer to 25. That's quarter of your lifetime. Like that's scary. It's a real thought, like being pregnant. I mean, I have a girlfriend. We've been, like I said, we've been together for a year and a half. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like real, like that's, I guess, just real stuff that, kind of runs through your head. And it's like to think about especially trying to raise a boy in the world we live in now sounds terrifying. Not even like in a weird toxic masculinity type of way or anything, but just like how do you figure out how to like teach your son to protect, to be brave, to be like all these things, like all these normal man things that we have heard growing up, because kids nowadays, they probably don't hear a lot of the stuff that we grew up hearing from our parents, but imagine being our age and believing like that, and like the way our parents believe, and then trying to raise your kid in a world where it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Like, nah, dude, if you're strong, you're toxic. Like what, how does that even,
Yeah.
like, how does that equate, and then how do you present that to your child and then send them off to school, and then they're like told something completely different, or they're learning something completely different. Like, I think that's just a big fear, because it's like,
Sure.
I mean, it's going to guide them for the rest of their lives. I mean, when they're young, they soak up everything. So it's like trying to figure out like what to do in that situation where you want to teach, like, and I say a boy specifically mainly because, like, I mean,
Well, we relate to
more,
boys,
yeah,
because we were the boys growing up.
Because I couldn't imagine being raised as a young kid now.
Yeah.
Versus how I was raised then. I just could not imagine. It's like such a big cultural, it really is almost like a cultural difference. Like,
It absolutely
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
it's a completely different world out there. I mean, kids are out here playing sports for years, years without anyone keeping track of the score. Like, I mean, even as dumb as that sounds, like that's something we never experienced ever. I've never played any sport where they never kept score, never kept track of what people were doing, never had, and that's just something basic. So I couldn't imagine having to be a father and going over some real world stuff.
Let me ask you, with all of that in mind, do you sometimes struggle with like the idea of if you even want to be a father?
Well, 100%. Well, we've
For
had this
those reasons
conversation
and for others. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, for like any reason, do you ever like sit there and kind of contemplate, do I even want to go down that route?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as you know, I had never wanted kids. Never. That was not my thing. I mean, I still kind of don't want kids, but I also understand. it's just a different understanding now. Maybe that is you get older, you start to understand things, but you really do. I mean, you get older and you start to care about different things. You start to, I mean, even with music, music's all I ever wanted to do. I'm 25 now, or 24, and I'm just like, I'd rather be a good person than be famous.
Same,
I would much rather be someone that is dependable, someone that people know they can trust with something, than to make a lot of money making music. It's weird. Some people would say, "Oh, you just gave up on your dreams or whatever," but it's like sometimes you just change, and your opinions change.
It's absolutely natural. That's part of life,
And it's like it was the same way with kids. Like bringing it back into that. I mean, I absolutely abhorred the thought. Is that the word? I don't know. Some cool word, but I was terrified at the thought of like having a kid, or just was almost disgusted with like, nah, ain't no way.
Yeah.
But I think that was mainly just because of how I grew up and like my home situation, and like thinking like, well, to break the generational, I guess curses, or the generational, traumas or whatever, just don't have kids. Then you never have to worry about it, And I think that was like my thinking process for a really long time. And 24 now, and it's like, all right, well, if I have a kid, I know I'm gonna be a pretty good ass dad. So
You want to know one thing I struggle with like kind of, in a way, breaking the generational trauma thing, but also kind of not, is like, you've been my friend for a long time, and you've obviously had your own problems and struggles with your own father, but my own dad also had very similar issues, and so did my mom. And so I struggle a lot with like,
that was also something I really like appreciated, like what your dad was saying, because I was like, oh, I didn't actually know. I didn't know that. So
yeah. And so to me, one thing I struggle with a lot is like kind of the opposite, where like now I almost feel like I'm obligated to hold up my dad's reputation for breaking the trauma. I think my dad broke the trauma, showed what it was like to be a real father, to like stand his ground and be there. And now I feel like I am almost left in this position where I have to fill his shoes and be that same man.
And how do you fill those shoes? Like how do you fill shoes that have left such a big footprint,
I have no answer. That's the problem. That's one thing that terrifies me to my core.
And that's such a weird, because like, not to sound insensitive, but that's just something I would have never thought of in my life. Like, but it makes sense, because because all I've ever thought of is like, well, you got a good dad, so you don't really have to worry about that. There's really no fear as far as what am I gonna do different? There's not a lot you can do different.
There's stems from it too. Like there's stems from like when I was younger, before I had any siblings. Even though I was young, Becca came along very quickly in my childhood. But throughout the time where it was just me and Becca, I was it. I was the family name.
Yeah, that's it.
And my family, my dad had created something where the Rucker name was like something
you're gonna live on, like you're literally living on.
And so thinking like, oh, if I don't find a woman, there's still cores in me to this day where like I'm like, man, if I don't find a girl, if I don't find a spouse, I can't make the family. Now we have John, and so like there's now we do have.
So I've given up hope completely.
No,
I'm actually gonna remain celibate.
No, I just mean like, yes, there are certain bits of it now where I'm not as scared because like obviously there's not the whole I'm the only boy.
Yeah.
But I still struggle with it to this day. It's a weird mental game where like, oh, if I can't find a partner, I can't have a family, and if I can't have a family, then I can't like do what my dad did. And it's a weird game where it's like, and I don't mean to throw all this at you since I know you had a much different walk,
Well, I mean, yeah, it's different, but there's so many similarities within the differences, if that makes sense. There are things that I think you're very afraid of that, like, in my life, I don't see you having those problems. Like, not not saying you don't have them, obviously, because you're obviously voicing them right now. But like,
Yeah.
but like to me, I'm just like, wow, that's crazy that that's what you're worried about. Because like, just to me, I'm like, that's the furthest thing in my mind that you would worry about, because I just don't see you have a problem filling shoes of a good father. You know, I don't see you. Well, I mean, I don't see you not ending up with anyone, you know, either. So
Well,
like,
thank
that's
God.
just because I mean, maybe it's just cliche because it's like, oh, well, I found someone, so that's just, you know, I can talk. Like, I can't. I don't know. I don't know the rules to anything, but like, you know, my relationship came when I wasn't looking for anything. I was just literally at a concert.
Yeah.
So that was just at a concert. It was just vibing, and then that happened, and now I'm here, year and a half later. So you know, like things just fall into place. It's almost like what your dad said. I mean, things just kind of fall into place, and then you learn there. You know, like no one prepares you to be a father. No one prepares you to really be a husband.
You just learn as you go.
Yeah, and something that is so crazy for me to think of is like our parents were us. Like,
yeah, dude. I talked with my dad for a little bit there, where we're realizing that everyone is a conscious person kind of scares me at times.
Like you're like
that's
you're,
a whole
you're
other
a real
thing.
like
Thinking
you're a real
about,
person.
Yeah.
Like you're
Think about
a
how
real
your
person.
parents were out there one time and they were you. Like, oh, that's
To think my mom was my age that I am now, and she was living on her own and was married to another person. Like like that's like so wild. Like, and then I don't know. Maybe it is part of like TikTok kind of like showing the fact that there are a lot of people who are human. You know, you see people like living lives like every day through like every sort of lens imaginable, like culturally, racially, like belief wise, like everything. Like you just see through the lens of everybody now because everything's so accessible. But like I just saw a TikTok about that the other day where some girl filmed her dad, and like the caption was like I always wonder why my dad sits at the table and entertains us like while we all eat dinner, but he never eats with us. And she takes a video of her dad, and he's eating there at the table and looking up at like paintings of his parents. And like, you know, something like that, you're like, oh my gosh, like he's just their little boy too, you know?
yeah.
Like it doesn't matter like how old you are, like that's his parents too. Like he's just one of us.
Do you think
just missing his mom and
as
dad,
we get
you know?
older,
Like
we all sort of understand that now, and then
I think
start
so,
to
yeah.
stop seeing our parents as like an entity and actually as people.
Well, you stop like kind of almost glorifying them. I think you kind of glorify your parents in a way because it's like, oh, they're like almost like a higher being to where like, do I ask them real questions? Do I like talk to them like a real person? How do I have a normal, at least me. I mean, you're more open with your family, but I think it's because your family's closer. I don't have that. Like, I don't just have random like sparks of conversation because like I don't feel like that's really something I had. But you know, now that I'm getting older, I've started realizing like, wow, we all just think we're the main character of our story, but
and so did they.
Yeah,
everyone has that, including our parents.
And it's like, you know, you read history books and you think of like all this stuff. You know, it's almost like that famous part. You know, then we've talked about it like many times with like whether it's YouTube, music, all this kind of stuff. Like you want to be remembered for something, and then like you just think about how many people there really are that have been remembered after they've been dead and gone. Such a very little amount, you know, like, and it's just so weird. It's just so weird to know that like we all are in that like situation. So it's I don't know. I think it's like humbling knowing that your parents are human. It's also a little bit harder because then you know like you're kind of doomed to just be in the same boat with your, you know, with your kids.
We're all ending up going the same route at the end of the day. It's like my dad said, we all are born.
We're all born, you get a job, you die,
You find
and that's
love,
about it.
you're supposed to, I guess.
Hopefully.
According to my father, but
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of that, with like the loss, that goes into being a parent and like trying to keep yourself strong.
mm-hmm.
You know, I couldn't imagine, especially being a dad, only because I can really only relate to like male like figures in that way. But the person who is like the stereotypical, like, you have to be a strong one, no tears, no like anything.
Something like that really is.
I just could not imagine trying to keep it together. And trying to keep it together for a family, not just yourself, not just for your spouse,
as the
but
dad,
like
commonly you're the one holding everything together, not just yourself, but everyone.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, and like, let alone 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, some people, it's like, oh, I only have 1 kid to worry about in this situation, or I have no kids to worry about in this situation. Try handling having 3 other people's feelings that you're worrying about on top of yours and your wife.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just couldn't imagine. And I just think it was funny, like, kind of really how he said it too, with just, you know, you can't really appreciate, I guess, the journey, you know, like your journey makes you more strong, and you know, you learn and you've grown. Obviously, it's like one of the most painful journeys you can go through. And I mean, I literally have a tattoo like of that, like on my arm. I mean, like, loss and love, like, you can't really appreciate one without the other, without, you know, I don't know. It's just so crazy that your dad can be, 20 years older than me, and I got something tattooed on my arm at 18, and he literally is going through the same thing, you know, and saying the same thing.
It just goes to show you
know,
how
it just goes hand in hand.
Everyone goes through this. Everyone struggles with this. Everyone lives this, you know.
And it lets you know, like, you're never alone. Like, you're never alone, no matter how crazy the situation, how devastating the situation is. Like, there's always going to be someone there that's going to give that sympathetic ear and that understanding. So, yeah, crazy.
Well, I think this episode was a banger, my friend, and I think
Same.
You know, we touched on a lot of like serious topics. We touched on a lot of fun and like comedic topics, and we've also given a lot of things to look forward to in the future for the Woodsmen. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be a banger season. Welcome back to the Woodsmen
Welcome
podcast.
back. We still don't know how long these seasons are supposed to last, but eventually we will figure it out, and we will let you know. Got a lot of things in store. Eventually, we still are going to get Patreon up, hopefully by this season. And
So, overall, thank you guys so much for watching. We've been your hosts, Joey Rucker.
And Brent Murphy. Later, Gators. Yurt. The Woodsman Podcast is actively reading and responding to anything and everything on Instagram and our email. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the show, you can email us at thewoodsmanpod@gmail.com. Make sure to keep up with all things Woodsman related on Instagram at WoodsmanPod. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow the Woodsman Podcast with video exclusively on YouTube and Patreon. Make sure to follow our personal accounts at Strange Kids and Piemaster J on all platforms.
The Woodsman Podcast is co-produced by Brent Murphy and Joey Rucker.
Engineered by Brent Murphy and edited by Joey Rucker.
Additional editing by Brent Murphy and blood, sweat, and tears by the both of us.
Any additional content by the Woodsman Podcast may not be used without our permission. Copyright the Woodsman Podcast. And remember, if you're going out for milk, make sure to come back.